Thanks for joining me today, Rob. One of the questions that I have today, and there is so much talk about culture in the workplace with psychosocial risks and hazards being mentioned, and with organisations having a look at getting a better culture. I just wanted to talk about how social psychology of risk, how SPOR views culture.
Yep, yep. Well, we understand culture in a very different way than traditional risk and safety. We align in social psychology of risk much more in alignment with semiotics and poetics and First Nations understanding of culture. So we use a semiotic to try and understand culture rather than culture being done through text-based propositions or kind of textbook argument. So we use a cloud to anchor to. So we have both image and poetics in the one spot. So I've drawn up a picture of the culture cloud there. It's a model, it's a graphic, it's a semiotic, it's got a range, it's a model. It's got a range of things which you feel rather than conceptualize. So yeah, we use the cloud semiotic as a way of understanding culture, and each aspect of the culture cloud has a certain feeling about it as you move around it. So visually, understanding culture visually means that we come to an understanding of culture more phenomenologically and experientially than we do. So you just see single words in this idea of a cloud, but the whole time that we're sitting in the cloud, we're aware of things like variation of clouds, we're aware of turbulence, we're aware of the nature of clouds, and so on, as a part of talking about culture. So just like we talk about the sky as the atmosphere, you can talk about culture as the semiosphere. So that might do as a start. I mean, that language probably alienates a lot of people anyway who want a 10 dot point answer for what culture is. So the culture cloud just starts swirling around the idea of a worldview that a person has. And if you were to speak to an Indigenous person about what they think culture is for them, they wouldn't even use a model like this. They would use the semiotic of walking. They would, and in a First Nations Australian person would say, let's stop talking about culture. Let's go on country and walk in culture. And so that's the First Nations understanding. I guess if you're talking about, other worldviews, either whether they're behaviorist worldviews or materialist worldviews, or whether they're cognitivist or rationalist worldviews, they would not recognize that you can understand culture in this kind of visual, verbal, experiential, phenomenological way. And I don't particularly care whether they do or not. I find most of the traditional text-based type stuff that's floating around doesn't even come close to matching what an anthropologist would do if they were wanting to engage in culture. Most anthropologists might write up at a later date what they've discovered in culture, but even anthropologists roll up their sleeves, pack a bag and fly in a plane and live amongst a culture much, much more than they sit down with a pen and a pad and write notes on culture. So at the very center of the culture cloud is a worldview. It's a way of seeing the world. And I've written the word sociality there, which is a unique word to social psychology, which is equivalent to perhaps a person might call their ontology, their way of being. So your way of being, the way you see the world, the way you're disposed to the world, the way you're oriented to the world, is a form of sociality when you do this through social psychology. So that's the starting point. For those who are a little bit more philosophical and academic, you might call this starting point your methodology. It's a philosophy, and so depending on whether you're a pragmatist or a utilitarian or a care ethicist or whatever your position is, or maybe you're a deontological theorist, depending whatever your starting point is, will shape the way you see culture and the way you define and understand culture. So that's why we start in the middle, and the cloud swirling around and all these things around it that we see are various elements of what we would call within this model, we would call perhaps characteristics of culture. Does that help?
That helps fantastically. So the worldview, really, really important, because they're the lens that we're going to put on
Yeah, that's right.
when
That's
we
right.
view this. So this can be different to everybody.
Yeah,
Thanks, Rob. I reckon
yeah.
that's a great start for today.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, well, that'll